This video is for step number 22 and 23 of your first project. We'll be adding shadows to your model here. So in your default tray, I would like for you to expand your shadows bar here. If you have something else, just pick on the gray bar. And this has a few more settings than the toolbar up here. So you can turn on and off shadows up here, but for right now, I'd like for you to just concentrate on this over here. So the first thing I'd like for you to do is to pick on your ISO view. If you have some other overall view, something like that, go ahead and pick on your ISO view. You should have already positioned your background and your trees, and you notice that I don't have my site plan on. So this is the way your model should look before you turn on shadows. And so to turn on shadows, it's simply by picking this Show Hide Shadows icon. So I'm going to pick that, and instantly you can see a difference. Everything kind of got brighter, and you can actually see shadows on the house here and on the ground from the light posts. But I'm going to back out of my view and explain a couple things here. Now I turned off the axis lines here, so I'm going to turn them back on by going to View and Axis here. So you see those kind of get in the way. So in my ISO view, I had turned them off and updated the view. So in SketchUp, if you looked at the green axis line, that is north in SketchUp. So this is north. Down here, this way would be south, east, and west. So you can kind of gauge where the shadows are. You can kind of see the shadows here of the homes. And I'm going to hover over this a little bit so you can kind of see what's going on. Now the first thing you'll notice is that you see some grayness here, okay? So, and you kind of see it come in and out. And if I get close to it, you can really see it, right? And you can almost see like a double shadow here. There's one here and one here. So the first thing I want you to do over here is to look at your display area, and you'll have a few choices. Now, on faces means that it will be on a surface, okay? On ground will mean that it is between the red and the green axis plane. So that's what's showing that gray. And so what we want to do for typically all of our projects is just turn this off. So just pick it, and those gray shadows disappear. And these are the shadows we want. And never mind this one for right now. But for right now, I'd like for you to zoom in a little close like this and kind of look at the shadows. All the interesting shadows are really in the back. And we're going to try to bring a little bit of that forward. So in this area right here, you'll have a slide bar showing the time and the date. So all of these letters correspond to, of course, the month of the year, and here the time of day, and right in the middle is noon. So I'm going to move this over to noon, and I'm going to just move this kind of the middle of the year, kind of around June, okay? And you can see while I'm moving this, some things are happening to your model here. So the first thing I want you to do is to get into your ISO view, because that's the way we're going to photograph our 4 homes. So when I pick on that, you'll notice that this changed back, and that's because this tab here, this view tab, did not have those settings. In fact, the shadows were off. So what we have to do is to turn them on in your tab, and then move this over. I'm just going to start in the middle here, okay, like that. And you notice those gray shadows came back. See that? So on ground, deselect that. So the first thing after you set it up like this is to come over here to your ISO view, right click, and update. If you don't do that and you make the perfect settings for your shadows, and then you pick on another view or zoom out like this to check, and then when you go back to ISO view, it's going to have your old settings. Okay, so make sure that anytime you change the shadow settings, that you update your tab here, your scene tab. Okay, so now back to the settings here. Now with the light and the dark, you can see what it does. You know, if I move it like this, really dark, it kind of gives it a dark appearance overall. And this dark here is for the actual shadow itself. So if I move this to here, you can see that it's darkening the whole thing, and the shadow gets a little darker itself. So if you move this to the right, you can see how dark the shadow is there. Now if I move this back to the right, okay, the whole thing lightens up, but it's really for the shadows to show darker or lighter. Okay, so we want a definite shadow there, but most of our shadows, since we have it at noon, are straight down. So we're going to give this a little bit of a move towards this way, and it brings a little bit more shadow onto the house and on the ground. And then let's play with this a little bit, and you can either pick, you know, specific month and look at it. And I would go to extremes at first, because you really kind of want to look at see what it's doing. So again, there's pointing towards the back, so let's go really like this, and let's try to get a little closer to the front. Now the other thing that I like to do is just move my middle button on the mouse, the scroll button, one notch at a time, and you can see it moves it very slowly. Okay, and then let's say if I kind of like that, and then I can pick on this and move that one notch at a time. Okay, so it's bringing a little bit, it's shading the front of the house here. We can see the light here. So maybe that's not the best. For right now, we're not really trying to coordinate it with where the sun is in the background. In a more detailed or more true to life situation, we would try to do that. But for this, I just want interesting shadow lines, and that looks really good. I like that. I like over here, I can see this a little bit here. So that's showing me at 3:20, and that is June 14th. Okay, so this might take a little time. So I'm going to just kind of pick something that's a little too much. I'm going to back out of the view a little bit so my homes are actually a little brighter, like that. And then maybe in here, I'm going to go back, okay, something like that. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that. And again, I'm going to come down here and play with it a little bit. You can see the contrast a little bit better like that. Okay, so I think I like that. Okay, now this is a little dark, but don't forget, you can always change the tree. You can move it back a little bit. So I'm going to edit this, take this tree and just move it in the green axis direction. Okay, now you notice that it might get into the house a little bit there. And then I'm going to pick out here, pick on my view tab again, and look what happened. What happened to my shadow settings. Now I kind of did that on purpose because remember we came over here and we checked all of these, but I didn't save them. So again, now I'm going to have to remember what I did. So I had this maybe around here, I had this a little darker, And then I had this around 3 o'clock or so, something like that. And let's see, I think I had it similar to that. And here, I'm just going to move it there and leave it be right there. Okay, on faces. Now this little button here, leave it unchecked. This is mainly used for interior lighting. So we'll get to that eventually. So all of these other things, and you want the universal time coordinates to be set at 7 here. If it's anything else, go ahead and pick here and just pick on that. And I believe this is set for Colorado someplace. But anyways, this is your settings. And if you like the shadows here, again, what you need to do is to come over here, right click, and update.